four horses, the superficial front line, and the arm lines. So we're going to dig in deeper to the four horses here, which are these points on the thigh, on the stomach meridian. And these points are some of the most widely known Master Tung points. And what's interesting about them is in TCM, we don't typically needle stomach points on the thigh. Now, maybe sometimes you'll needle stomach 34 for a local condition of the knee, and you do find it indicated for some conditions. But typically, if you look at your TCM point actions and indications with stomach 31 to stomach 34, you'll find it indicated for things like local paralysis and local conditions and a wind damp, and you'll find different indications for it. But what I want to bring your attention to here are these Master Tung points because they're so widely used, but TCM points in this area are not so commonly used. So this is really interesting because we've got this whole major segment here within the quads where in TCM we're not using points in this region typically. But with the Tung style, we find that these four horses are some of the most popular points. And in particular, they're used for respiratory disorders, and those can be acute conditions or chronic conditions. And we can use them for excess or deficiency conditions. We can use them for all types of respiratory and lung patterns. So these 3 points here then are located 5.5 sun above the superior lateral edge of the patella is the first point, and then 7.5 sun above the patella is the central point, and then 9.5 sun above is the third point. So we have these 3 points that are always needled together, and this is a special group of points because in the Tan and Tung systems we typically only needle points on one side of the body, and then on the other side we'll do different points. But the four horses, these are frequently needled on both sides. So that's another thing that makes these unique in the Tung system, is that for respiratory conditions and some of the other indications like skin conditions, we do tend to needle these bilaterally. But there's some of the few points that we do needle bilaterally in the Tung system. So the first point being 5.5 sun above the superior lateral edge of the patella is essentially the same location as stomach 32, because stomach 32 is located 6 sun above. So we find this little bit of difference, but again, don't get too wrapped up and concerned about technical textbook point location, because we're looking for the areas where the tension is held in the system and where each client holds the tension, or where you find the trigger point or the ashi point. So notice that these points are 2 sun apart, which is quite typical for the Dao groups of points, that they're either 2 or 3 sun apart. And that's one of the easiest ways to remember these new point selections and these groups of points, is that they're either 2 or 3 sun apart. And when you start palpating people, you may find that it's a half a sun apart, or a sun apart, or 2 sun apart, or 3 sun apart. And just put in the 3 most sensitive points in these bands, in these areas, and you'll get the best reaction. So some of the other indications of these points is they're used for breast pain, costal pain, skin disorders, facial and eye problems. And I particularly like these for costal pain. And typically in TCM, we will think of ribside pain and costochondritis as being like a liver gallbladder disharmony. And if we look at the anatomy of this, we can see that the rectus abdominis comes up and converges with the sternal fascia, and we've got the sternalis there. And in this area of the sternum, then we've got the ribs joining into the sternum as well. And I think that that's why these points are used for costal pain and costochondritis,